Hi Evergreen. Let's do chapter 6, lesson 4, parallel lines and angles. So we are just going to continue learning about our parallel lines with the transverse and all the angles and the relationships in between those three lines. So let's go over our theorems again. If two lines form equal corresponding angles, then the lines are parallel. So we see our parallel lines here, 1 and 2, and this transversal is crossing both of them. And because the corresponding angles, like 1 and 5, 4 and 8, 3 and 7, 2 and 6 are equal in every spot, this proves that these lines are parallel. So, theorem 19 says parallel lines for equal corresponding angles. So, parallel lines with the transverse will give us corresponding angles. These kind of says the exact same thing as theorem 17 in many ways, but it also is showing us that 1 to 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8 are corresponding angles. And that means they are equal, they are congruent to each other. And so are the vertical angles, 1 and 7, 2 and 8, and then 5 and 3 are equal, and so are 6 and 4, they are equal. Alternate interior angles. So we have our parallel lines and we have our transversal. Now it says interior, so we know we are talking about inside the parallel lines. Alternate means they are on the opposite sides of the transversal. So we have 4 and 5 are congruent angles, and 3 and 6 are congruent angles. And then we have the same side interior angles. So let's talk about that again. Same side, interior. So interior in between the parallel lines, same side. So instead of alternating on opposite sides of the transversal, we're on the same side of the transversal. And they're saying these are supplementary. So they will add to 180 degrees. That's what supplementary angles mean. Okay, so let's go over it one more time. Alternate exterior angles. So exterior means it's outside of the parallel lines, and alternate means they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So up here, we have one on the right side of the transversal, and on the bottom, we have on the bottom left side of the transversal, and these are congruent. Corresponding angles, we've already talked a lot about this today, but they are on the same spot in relation to the parallel lines and the transversal. Alternate interior angles are inside of the parallel lines and opposite sides of the transversal, and they are congruent. Same side interior angles. Interior means inside the parallel lines. Same side of the transversal. These are supplementary. So they aren't congruent, but they are supplementary. And then same side exterior angles. So exterior, outside of the parallel lines, same side of the transversal, so on the right of the transversal and the right of the transversal. And these, as you can tell, are not congruent, but they are supplementary. Okay, corollary number 1, equal alternate interior angles mean that lines are parallel. So if you have these congruent angles, you measure and you see, oh, x is the same as x on this side, then you know the lines are congruent. Corollary number 2, supplementary interior angles on the same side of the transversal mean that lines are parallel. So if you find that angle 4 and 5 add to 180, you know that A and B are parallel. Corollary number 3. In a plane, two lines perpendicular to a third line are parallel. So if you have perpendicular lines with one parallel line and a transversal, and then you have another parallel line, and this is also forming a perpendicular angle with your transversal, then you have parallel lines. So let's go over some proofs. Open up your book and let's go over number 5 together. Write these answers down. Corollary proofs. Complete the following proof of the corollaries of this lesson by giving the missing reasons. Corollary number 1. Parallel lines form equal alternate interior angles. So first find those alternate interior angles. 1 and 2. It says given A and B lines are parallel, our job is to prove that angle 1 and angle 2 are parallel, or not parallel, blah, 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 equal. Okay, so number 1, A is parallel to B, and our reason, it's given. That's pretty much always your first one. It's given, and your last one is always what you're proving, correct? So this one has 2 steps. Angle 1 is equal to angle 3. How do we know that? What position are they in? Well, if you see that 1 is in, if you think of these as quadrants, kind of, here's the transversal, here's the parallel line. It's in 1, 2, 3, this little third section. And if we look at this transversal and this parallel line, do you see how it's in 1, 2, third, the same position? So what is it called when an angle is in the same position in reference to the transversal? It is corresponding angles. That is your reason for number 2. Parallel lines form equal corresponding angles. Number 3, angle 1 and equals angle 2. Angle 2 equals angle 3. So how do we know angle 2 equals angle 3? What do you notice about these 2 angles? What's their relationship? Are they across from each other? They're vertical angles. We know vertical angles are equal. So now we're going to substitute. And what did we substitute? Well, we substituted angle 3 and angle 2's information. We know that 1 is equal to angle 3. We know now that 2 is equal to angle 3. And so therefore, 1 is equal to angle 2. Next, number 6, corollary number 2. Parallel lines form supplementary interior angles on the same side of the transversal. So let's take a second to absorb that. Interior angles inside the parallel lines on the same side. So we are talking about angles 1 and 2. And we are trying to prove that they are supplementary. So let's go over. Given line A and B are parallel, we need to prove that angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. That means they add to 180 degrees. How are we going to prove it? Let's go through these reasons. So number 1, A is parallel to B. This is our given. Okay. Angle 1 is equal to angle 3. What do you notice about this angle 1 and this angle 3? Are they in the same position? What is that called? Corresponding angles are equal. 3, angle 2 and angle 3 are supplementary. Angle 2 and angle 3, because what are they having in common? They are angles right next to each other. What is the name of that when there are 2 angles right next to each other going along a straight line? Do you remember? Okay, I'll show you some of these answers. They are called a linear pair. Remember line pair? And see how they make a pair on the line? Okay, so here are answers for 1, 2, and 3. We've talked about them. Now for number 4, angle 2 plus angle 3 is 180 degrees. Well, we just talked about how they are a linear pair, so therefore the sum of 2 supplementary angles are 180. And now angle 2 plus angle 1 is 180. Angle 2 plus angle 1 is 180. Well, this is substitution because we're substituting our proof number 2. We're substituting 2, or 1 for 2. Oh no, that was right the first time. Angle 3 for angle 1. Okay, and then 6, 2 angles are supplementary if their sum is 180 degrees. So we have done what they've asked us to do with our proof. Number 7, corollary number 3. In a plane, if a line is perpendicular to one of 2 parallel lines, it is also perpendicular to the other. So basically this is just 2 parallel lines with a transversal that is going straight perpendicular through both. And do you notice that 1 and 2 are in the same spot in relation to the transversal and the parallel lines? What is that called? Corresponding angles. That's right. That is right. Okay, so let's go through our reasons. Given C is perpendicular to A, given, right? Angle 1 is a right angle. How many degrees is in a right angle? 90, okay? And perpendicular lines form right angles. That's that theorem that we're using, or a corollary that we're using. Number 3, angle 1 equals 90 degrees. Why? Because a right angle is 90 degrees. We just talked about a right angle in number 2. They're kind of going off of each other. Number 4, A is parallel to B. How do we know this? Given, it was 2 things that we were given. Number 5, angle 1 is equal to angle 2. How do we know this? Parallel lines form equal corresponding angles. That's our main thing there. 6, angle 2 is equal to 90 degrees. Did we already prove that angle 1 was equal to 90 degrees and that angle 1 and 2 were equal? Now we're just substituting this information for 6. Substitution. 7, angle 2 is a right angle. It's kind of repeating what it said up here. A 90-degree angle is a right angle. And now C is perpendicular to B. We have proved what we set out to do. Okay, these are kind of fun little puzzles. Find the angles. In each of the following figures, the arrowheads indicate parallel lines. Find the measures of the indicated angles. So every time you see a little arrowhead, as they call it, it means these two are parallel. So that means this is our transversal. I see 115 degrees. Where is the corresponding angle for 115 degrees? 3, right? 3 is also 115 degrees then, because of corresponding angles. And then, what is angle number 1? Because we know angle 3. Based on what relationship? Vertical angles, right? And then there's many ways to prove that number 2 is 180 minus 115 degrees, because these two angles add to 180. Also, 2 and 3 add to 180, and 1 and 2 add to 180. So since 1 and 3 are the same as 115, we just need to find the difference. So here's all that written down. And let's look at number 14. We see our parallel lines here with the red arrowheads. These are our parallel lines, and this is our transversal. This is a right angle, and in number 2 is a corresponding angle, correct? Yes, so it is in the same location in relation to the parallel line and the transversal. Now, 1 and 2 are linear pairs. So therefore, if this is 90 degrees, then that means we have to make 180 total. And so 1 is 90 degrees. And if 1 is 90 degrees, since it's a vertical angle of 3, it is also 90 degrees. And so here's that written out. And we are going to move on. Let's talk about a parallelogram and the angles within it. So a parallelogram means that there are 2 sets of parallel lines. We have the top and bottom are parallel. That's why it has 2 little arrowheads. And the left and right lines are also parallel. Now let's look at the angles. Angle A is congruent to angle C. Angle B is congruent to angle D. Okay? And A and D add to 180 degrees. So one side adds to 180 degrees. And also the top 2 angles add to 180 degrees. And the side angles add to 180 degrees. And the bottom 2 angles add to 180 degrees. But in total, there are 360 degrees inside of this parallelogram. We have A plus B plus C plus D equals 360 degrees. But notice these opposite corners are parallel, or these opposite lines are parallel, top and bottom and sides, but also the opposite angles are congruent. So this is a parallelogram. So lots of things that are happening in parallel. Now, a trapezoid is a little different. It's almost like a parallelogram, except we have one side that looks all nice parallel, like it's about to be parallelogram, and then it's, oh man, messed it up. But that's okay. It has the same relationship. We have angle A and D still add to 180 degrees, except it's not going to be repeating. A and C will not be congruent angles, and D and B will not be congruent angles. But it does have one thing in common with the parallelogram. A and D will add to 180 degrees. They're supplementary angles. And so A and D in this trapezoid are also supplementary angles. Here's another trapezoid just to look at this. Do you see how A and D add to 180 degrees? and B and C add to 180 degrees. And you can kind of imagine this as two triangles if you imagined a line being drawn from one corner to the bottom corner. And you can see how this would add to 180 degrees in half of the trapezoid and 180 degrees in the other half. So guess how many degrees are in a trapezoid total? If we add all four corners, another 360 degrees. Okay, so let's look at this irregular trapezoid. Now, we can see this is not a parallelogram because it does not have all the nice, lovely relationships that a parallelogram has. But do you remember that 110 degrees and angle 1 add to 180 degrees? And so therefore, we know that angle 1 is 70 degrees. And over here on the right, we know that 125 adds with angle 2 to equal 180 degrees. And so therefore, angle 2 is 55 degrees. This is irregular trapezoid angles. Now, number 16. Ooh, we have a parallelogram, and it's so lovely and easy because we have parallel lines on top and bottom, and left and right. And so 70 degrees in this corner means that number angle 2 is 70 degrees as well. And now remember, 70 degrees plus angle 1 equals 180 degrees, and so therefore angle 1 is 110 degrees. And we know that angle 1 is equal to angle 3, and so therefore angle 3 is 110 degrees. And if we added all 1, 2, 3, 4 angles together, it would get 360. And if we added all these 1, 2, 3, 4, we would get 360 degrees. Oops, I should say equal there, and equal there. Okay, SAT, last 3 questions. So do you see our parallel lines, A and B? And do you see our transversal, C? Now, are these in the same corresponding spot? No, right? X should be right here. Is that correct? Yes, that's the same relationship. And so X and 2x minus 30, if they are a linear pair, right? They add to 180 degrees, okay? So 45 says, write an equation telling the measures of the two indicated angles. So we have x and 2x minus 30 equal 180 degrees. Now we need to solve this. So we would combine and say plus 30 on the left, plus 30 on the right. This would cancel out the 30 and give us 210 degrees. And then we'd combine our like terms, x and 2x. So we'd have 3x equals 210 right here. And we divide by 3 on the left and on the right to have x by itself, and x would equal 70 degrees. So it says, what is the measure of the acute angle? Now, is that going to be this angle or this x angle? Which one is acute by looking at it? Well, the x is acute. So since we know that x equals 70, this answer is simply 70 degrees. And now we have to do a little work for this obtuse angle because we are going to have to plug the 70 into this little expression and solve. So we have 2 times 70 minus 30. So this is 140 minus 30, and that equals 110 degrees. And now that we're done, we can sit and think about it. These are linear angles, so they should add to 180. Did 70 and 110 add to 180? Yes. Okay, y'all did so great. If you have any questions, talk to me in class, or I will see you later. Bye.